I'm Grace, and I spent 18 years in a little two-story Minneapolis home with my parents, Lisa and Robert. We weren't the type of family that enjoyed thrilling trips or movie evenings, but I assumed it was just my parents' nature, restrained, pragmatic, and focused on their jobs and daily schedules. Mom was an accountant, and she spent her evenings with a calculator and spreadsheets. Dad worked in sales and was always on the phone, preparing presentations or completing transactions. There was always this gap, even though they took care of me, fed and clothed me, and assisted me with my homework when I asked. No hugs. Not the casual "I love yous" that I see in other households. I reminded myself that it was simply their style and that not all families needed to be overly sentimental to be happy. My mother said, "Grace, honey, we need to talk to you after dinner," the morning of my 18th birthday. Despite her unusually serious tone, I didn't give it any thought. Although they had never really made a big deal out of birthdays previously, perhaps they had something special planned. I chose to eat takeout pizza for my birthday supper, and I sat at our kitchen table that night, picking at what was left. Dad was obviously thinking about something, as he kept checking his phone while Mom hardly touched her slice. At last, Dad said, "So, Grace," setting down his phone. "Your mother and I have been planning something for a while now, and since you're 18 today, it's time we told you." I woke up anticipating a surprise present or possibly some news concerning college preparations. The next thing that happened hit me hard. Mom said, "We're selling the house," without emotion. "I'm going to Europe with your dad. There we intend to launch our own company." I gazed at them, anticipating the joke. "Oh, I see. When do we depart? I mean, I'll have to find out how to apply to colleges." "No, Grace," Mom interrupted, her tone piercing. "We're on the go. You won't accompany us." "What do you mean?" I spoke in a little, childish voice. "I don't understand." Dad clarified, "You're 18 now," as though he were talking about a commercial deal. "A mature person. You need to take care of yourself now." With my head unable to comprehend what I was hearing, I glanced between them. "How about college, though?" "In a few months, I'm expected to begin." "We have been discussing it." As she got up to clean the plates, Mom added, "That's your responsibility now." "You've been a burden for so long, Grace, to be honest. For 18 years, we provided you with food, clothing, and assistance. That is more than sufficient." I felt the remarks as if they were actual blows. A burden for years. Even though I was crying, Mom carried on loading the dishes as like she hadn't just destroyed my entire existence. Dad went on to say, "You can stay here until we sell the house," in a tone that seemed to imply a generous offer. "But the sooner you figure out your own situation, the better it will be for everyone." As my parents talked over my head about real estate values and the hassles of moving, I sat there dumbfounded. Memories of 18 years abruptly changed. Every quiet meal, every school play missed, every quick, good job in lieu of an embrace. These weren't indications of self-control or distinct parenting approaches. These were indications that my parents had been eagerly awaiting my departure. I felt like I had been struck by a vehicle when I woke up the next morning. As I called Grandma Eleanor's phone, my hands were shaking. I felt a bit less lost when she answered the second call with her kind voice. "Gracie, how are things going, my love? You never give us an early call." Even though I was having trouble speaking, I somehow told her everything: the birthday supper, their announcement, and Mom labeling me a burden. Grandma's breathing on the other end of the telephone grew labored with every detail. She mumbled something beneath her breath that I had never heard her speak before. Those absolute. "Pack your bags, Gracie," she urged, her voice growing louder. "Right now, you're moving in with me." I didn't require 2 reminders. I took my biggest bag from the attic and began packing everything I could think of, including my laptop, clothing, pictures, and the few jewelry items I had. I could hardly zip the bag shut because my hands were trembling so much. Mom and Dad were still discussing real estate valuations downstairs. When I carried my bag past them and out the door, they hardly raised their heads. No farewell. I had no doubts about my destination. Nothing. When I arrived into Grandma's driveway, she was waiting on her front porch. She gave me one of her bear embraces, the type I'd always hoped I'd have from my mother, and took me inside the warm house I'd been to so many times as a child, enjoying cups of her renowned hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Grandma explained her strategy. She said in a tone that left no room for debate, "First things first, you're going to college. I've got savings, and they're going to good use, sending my grandbaby to school. Grandma, I can't take your money." She squeezed my hand across the table and whispered, "You're not taking anything, I'm giving it. You should also be aware of another issue. I am altering my will." Startled, I glanced up. Grandma had a stern look on her face. "Gracie, everything is going to you. This house, my savings. Don't give your mother a dime. Although it's not much, this residence is paid for. Although not millions, the savings are plenty. Everything will be yours." Grandma made one more point later that night as we were sitting in her little but spotless living room. "We need to agree on something, Gracie," she stated cautiously. "I believe it's better if we don't discuss the specifics of this. There's no need to share private matters with the rest of the family." I nodded, instantly understanding. "I don't want to talk about it anyway." Grandma patted my hand and whispered, "Good, give them freedom to think as they like. The important thing is that we be aware of the truth." The routine of college life became comfortable. Grandma's humming in the kitchen and the aroma of her coffee would greet me every morning. Before I left for my courses, we would have breakfast together. In the evenings, I would share my day with her while she worked on her crossword puzzles. Occasionally, relatives would drop by to visit Grandma. During one such visit, Aunt Sarah mentioned casually, "Oh, did you hear? Lisa and Robert finally made it to Europe. Opened some kind of business there, I hear." I just nodded and excused myself to study. I didn't want to know more. What was harder to handle were the comments about my independence. They came regularly, wrapped in admiration, that made me want to scream. "You're such a strong young woman, Grace," Uncle Mike said during one visit. "Taking charge of your life, moving out on your own. So mature of you. It's admirable how you decided to make your own way. Not everyone your age would choose independence over living with their parents," Cousin Rachel chimed in. Each time, I'd force a smile and change the subject. It didn't take long to figure out the story my parents had spun. Their driven, independent daughter, so eager to strike out on her own that she'd moved out right after high school. It was easier to let everyone believe it. The truth hurt too much to share. Then came the worst day of my life. Grandma had been feeling tired for weeks, but we both brushed it off as just age catching up with her. By the time we realized it was more than that, it was too late. The doctor said words like aggressive and at advanced stage. And before I knew it, I was holding her hand in a hospital room, watching her slip away. "You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Gracie," she whispered one night, her voice weak, but her eyes clear. "Don't you ever forget that." She died 3 months later, a year before I was set to graduate. The funeral was small, but well attended by family. Everyone came except my parents. Aunt Sarah told me they'd been informed, but said they couldn't make it back from Europe on such short notice. I graduated with honors the following year, clutching my diploma and fighting back tears, because the one person I wanted to see me walk across that stage wasn't there. But Grandma had prepared me for everything, even her absence. Thanks to her generosity, I had options. I used some of the inheritance to buy a lovely apartment closer to downtown, where I'd landed a job at Preston and Associates investment firm. I decided to keep her house and rent it out. I couldn't bear to sell it, but I also couldn't face living there without her. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. That's how I met James. He walked into the wrong conference room at Preston and Associates, looking for a client meeting that had been moved. Instead, he found me preparing for a presentation, surrounded by scattered papers and empty coffee cups. Either this isn't the Thompson meeting, or they've really changed their marketing strategy, he joked, gesturing at my chaos. I couldn't help but laugh. Next door, I replied, but hey, at least you found someone who appreciates a good coffee addiction. One coffee date led to another, and before I knew it, we were spending every free moment together. James was different from anyone I'd ever met, warm, genuine, and incredibly patient. When I finally told him about my parents one night, he just held me and listened, not trying to fix anything or offer empty platitudes. "You didn't deserve that," was all he said, wiping away my tears. Not any of it. A year and a half after that wrong turn into my conference room, James took me to dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. He seemed nervous all evening, fidgeting with his napkin and checking his pocket every few minutes. When dessert arrived, I found a ring nestled next to my chocolate souffle, a stunning diamond that caught the candlelight and scattered it across our table. "I want to build a family with you," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "A real one, filled with all the love you should have had all along." I said yes through happy tears, and for the first time in years, I felt truly, completely whole. The next day, I posted a photo on social media, my hand with the ring, James hugging me from behind. "Said yes to forever with my best friend," I wrote, my heart so full of joy I thought it might burst. 2 days later, the message appeared in my inbox. My mother's name popped up, and my stomach lurched. "Dearest Grace, your father and I just saw your wonderful news. We are so incredibly happy for you. We know we have no right to ask this, but we spent years regretting how we treated you. Not a day goes by that we don't think about our terrible mistakes. We'd love to come to your engagement party to try to make amends. We understand if you say no, but we miss you so much. Love, Mom and Dad." I stared at the message until the words blurred. When James came home, I showed it to him, my hands trembling. "What do you think?" I asked, hating how small my voice sounded. James read the message twice, his arm around my shoulders. "I think it's entirely your decision. But if they've genuinely changed, if they're truly sorry, maybe they deserve a chance to prove it." I thought about Grandma, about what she would say. She'd probably tell me to be careful, but follow my heart. "Okay," I whispered, more to myself than to James. "One chance." I wrote back a short message. "The party is next Saturday at 7 o'clock. You can come at 6 o'clock to talk first." My hands wouldn't stop shaking as I got ready that Saturday evening. James squeezed my shoulder and kissed my cheek before heading out to pick up the catering, leaving me alone to face my parents. At exactly 6 o'clock p.m., the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find them standing there, Mom in an expensive-looking dress, Dad in a crisp suit. They looked exactly the same, yet somehow like strangers. "Grace, darling," Mom stepped forward for an awkward hug. I stood stiffly, letting her embrace me but not returning it. "You look wonderful, and what a lovely apartment." We moved to the living room, where they perched uncomfortably on the edge of my sofa. Dad commented on the decor. Mom asked about my job. both of them acting like we were distant acquaintances at a cocktail party rather than family. Then Dad cleared his throat, his pleasant expression dropping away like a mask. "Grace, let's cut to the chase. We know about your situation." My situation? I felt my stomach clench. Yes, Mom leaned forward, her eyes sharp. We know about Grandma's inheritance, the house, the savings, all of it. And we've done our research. What research? The house is worth at least $300,000 in today's market, she stated like she was giving a business presentation. And knowing Mom, there must be significant savings too. Plus, we see you're doing very well. Nice apartment, wealthy fiancé. Get to the point. I said, my voice trembling, we want $70,000. Dad announced flatly, it's less than we're entitled to, really, but we're being reasonable. I stared at them, speechless. Mom pulled out a small notebook. I've calculated everything. As Mom's daughter, I have a right to inherit. If you don't give us the money, we'll sue for half of everything. The house, the accounts, all of it. You can't be serious, I whispered. Oh, we are. Dad's voice hardened. And if you don't cooperate, we'll make sure everyone knows how you manipulated your grandmother, how you turned her against us, convinced her to cut out her own daughter. I never. It doesn't matter what really happened. Mom cut in. What matters is what people will believe. Do you want all your relatives to know how you schemed to get your grandmother's money? Want your new in-laws to hear about it? The doorbell rang again. Early guests arriving. I stood up, feeling dizzy. I need time to think about this. Think fast. Dad stood straightening his tie. We want an answer soon. They walked out just as James's parents walked in, all smiles and congratulations. I plastered on a fake smile and tried to focus on greeting guests, but my mind was spinning as the apartment filled with cheerful voices and laughter. I felt like I was watching everything from underwater. The morning after the engagement party, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone. James had gone to work, but not before holding me close and whispering, "Whatever you decide, I'm with you." My hands were steady this time as I dialed their number. Mom picked up on the first ring. "Have you made your decision?" "No." "Hello." "No pleasantries." "Yes." I took a deep breath. I'm not giving you any money. Grandma made her choice, and I'm honoring it. You'll regret this, she hissed and hung up. They didn't waste any time. That evening, my phone started buzzing with notifications. My parents had posted a lengthy message on social media, complete with sad-faced emojis and carefully filtered photos of them looking distressed. Our hearts are breaking, the post read. After losing everything in Europe, our home, our business, all our savings, we turned to our only daughter for help. But Grace, who is living in luxury with her wealthy fiancé, refused to help her own parents. We are now homeless, moving between relatives' homes, not knowing where we'll sleep next week. How did we raise such a heartless child? Within hours, the post had been shared throughout our entire extended family. My phone exploded with messages. "Grace, how could you? Your own parents. They raised you for 18 years. You have plenty of money now. Why can't you help them? Ed, Martha called me sobbing. They need a place to stay. Grace, that house of your grandmother's is just sitting there with renters in it. Your own parents should be living there." Uncle Peter's message was particularly harsh. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. Your parents sacrificed everything for you. I wanted to scream, to tell them all the truth, but my throat felt closed up every time I tried to respond. Then came the wedding cancellations. "I'm sorry, Grace, but I can't celebrate while your parents are suffering," Cousin Rachel texted. What kind of person starts a marriage by turning their back on family? Wrote another relative. The final blow came from Uncle Mike, who'd always been kind to me at family gatherings. His message was brief and professional. Grace, as a lawyer, I feel obligated to inform you that I will be representing your parents in their lawsuit against you regarding your grandmother's estate. The law is clear about children's rights to inheritance, and your grandmother's will can be contested. Expect official documentation soon. I recommend you reconsider your position before this gets messy. You don't want to start your married life with a legal battle. I sat in my darkened apartment, reading and rereading the messages, watching as my entire extended family turned against me. The irony was almost funny. They were finally seeing me as the terrible person my parents had always thought I was, but for all the wrong reasons. James found me there when he got home, still scrolling through the endless stream of accusations and disappointment. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. I sat at my computer, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Taking a deep breath, I began to type to my family and friends. I stayed quiet for 8 years about what really happened between my parents and me. I let everyone believe their version of events because the truth was too painful to share. But now I have no choice. On my 18th birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were selling our house and moving to Europe. They informed me I wouldn't be coming with them. "You've been a burden for 18 years, my mother said. That's more than enough. They refused to help with college, refused to support me in any way. I was given until the house sold to figure out my own situation. I didn't choose independence as they claimed. I was abandoned. Grandma Eleanor took me in that very night. She gave me a home, paid for my education, and showed me what unconditional love really means. Now my parents are back demanding $70,000 and threatening to sue me for half of Grandma's inheritance. They're threatening to destroy my reputation if I don't comply. But Grandma, being the wise woman she was, saw this coming. My hands were shaking as I uploaded the video file beneath my post. Grandma's face filled the screen, looking tired but determined, sitting in her hospital room. Her lawyer, Mr. Thompson, was visible in the background. "Lisa," Grandma began, addressing my mother directly, "if you're watching this, it means you're trying to take what I left to Grace. I knew you would. You're my daughter and I love you, but your greed has poisoned your heart. I, Eleanor Marie Sullivan, being of sound mind and clear judgment, am recording this message in the presence of my attorney. I want to state explicitly why I've chosen to leave everything to my granddaughter, Grace. 8 years ago, you and Robert threw your own child away like she meant nothing. You refused to help with her education, refused to give her any support. You called her a burden. A burden. Your own daughter, whom I watched you bring into this world. Grace never told anyone what you did. She kept your secret, even when relatives praised you for raising such an independent daughter. She protected your reputation while you abandoned her. I'm leaving my house, my savings, and everything I own to Grace, not because she manipulated me, as I'm sure you'll claim, but because she showed more character in her pain than you've shown in your entire life. This is my final decision, made with full mental capacity and witnessed by my lawyer. Grace is my sole heir. That's all I have to say." The video ended with Grandma's lawyer confirming the date and circumstances of the recording. I added a final line to my post. I've kept this video private for years, respecting Grandma's wishes to avoid family drama. But now that my parents are threatening legal action and spreading lies, I have no choice but to share the truth. I'm sorry you all had to find out this way. With trembling fingers, I clicked post. The responses started flooding in within minutes of my post. The first call came from Uncle Mike. "Grace, I had no idea. My God, I'm so sorry. I'm withdrawing from the case immediately. What they did to you. After that, Aunt Sarah called, crying. That birthday meal. The next week, I recall bringing you a present, but your parents informed me that you had moved out. Your freedom appeared to make them very proud. How was that possible? Messages of astonishment, support, and apologies flooded the family group chat. In a lengthy message, Cousin Rachel, who had just canceled her RSVP, said, I feel terrible about judging you without knowing the truth. The picture your parents painted was so different. Tell me that there is still time to get to the wedding, please. I wish I could be there to help you. The wedding cancellations were reversed one by one. Family members who had denounced me just days before now extended their sincere regrets and offers of assistance. Messages of astonishment and grief were also received by distant relatives I hardly knew. I informed everyone that their place card will be waiting. No animosity. I learned bits and pieces about my parents from the grapevine. They had taken transitory jobs here and there while living with some old college pals. Dad took on any sales duties he could find, while Mom handled bookkeeping for small enterprises. It seemed that their lofty European aspirations had long since fallen apart. Even though I anticipated to feel bad about revealing them and releasing Grandma's video, I felt calm instead as I sat in my apartment the night before my wedding and gazed at the picture of Grandma on my mantel. I said to her photo, Grandma, you were right. I was freed by the truth. James discovered me there and embraced me from behind. Are you sorry? He inquired quietly. I remembered the frightened 18-year-old girl I had been, quietly packing her luggage. About the grandma whose love and wisdom had rescued me. About how I had changed into a stronger, wiser woman who was no longer burdened by the falsehoods of others. I said, not a single one, and I meant it. My family, who are aware of the true me, the suffering I've endured, and the resilience it has given me, will be there as I walk down the aisle tomorrow. The empty seats won't matter because my parents won't be there. Love, honesty, and most gloriously, tranquility are all I need. Some may argue that I'm cold-hearted for removing my parents from my life and failing to support them during their difficult time. However, I've discovered that true family isn't about duty or shame. It's about truth, love, and support. And sometimes letting go is the most loving thing you can do.